Nestled on the western edge of Port Phillip Bay, an hour and a half's drive from the deadly intrigues of Melbourne, lies Gateway City, the hub of the region, G-Town. For the last 4 decades, an uneasy peace has existed between the Anarchs and Camarilla in G-Town, their borders meeting on Bruce Street in the very centre of the city. The two sects divide the domain neatly in two. The native Anarchs, consolidated in the industrial north, have learned to tolerate Prince Aveline and her Camarilla invaders, and she in turn grants all Anarchs the right to hunt and conduct business in her waterfront domain. Anarch rabble-rousers and Camarilla traditionalists each afford their counterparts a reluctant respect. Until now. Word from Melbourne has reached the kindred of G-Town. Prince Squizzy wages a war on 3 fronts against a newly reorganised Anarch faction, Sabbat infiltrators, and the onslaught of the Second Inquisition. As refugees from both sects flood into Gateway to escape the oncoming chaos, local tensions flare, and the truce that has maintained peace since 1983 will be pushed to its limits. Welcome to Lords of G-Town, a Vampire the Masquerade 5th edition actual play podcast presented by DM Fiat Podcast, with music by Kevin MacLeod, White Bat Audio, Ivan Duch, and Jaxius Music. Now, as the sun sets on the city and the blood stirs, let's see what horrors the kindred face this night. Welcome back, everyone, to Lords of G-Town. It may not be Halloween in game right now, but this is our Halloween session, and things are getting spooky in the city of Gateway, as it's not just winter that's making things cold. People's hearts seem to be growing colder. The whole city seems to be falling into a malaise, into a very tired, resigned routine, bleak acceptance of things to come, of things awakening that should not be there. As Pentex's refining of Infernium continues, and as whatever slumbers in the depths of Cowie's Bay stirs, the city itself grows restless. People jostle and flip each other off in the streets. Local businesses find themselves victimized by vandals, lathered in graffiti tags, even in the normally pristine CBD. The nightclubs on Bruce Street seem to be catering to a slightly more hot-headed clientele than usual. The pages of the G-Town Addy carry stories of violence, of king hits, muggings, and a bubbling undercurrent of rage. Post-lockdown angst, an expert calls it, a city letting out a year's worth of pent-up frustration. But you all know something a bit more sinister. It's late July, a month or so since that harrowing night at the mall. And as you've once settled into the nightly routines of kindred existence, you've had plenty of time to reflect on what happened. Sam Stokes fucked up. That's clear. She drew the ire of Prince Aveline, used your unlives like bargaining chips to save her own skin, threw Wolf to the mercy of the Banu Hakim, forced you all to risk your own existence against a lupine, allowed the prince to blood bond all of you. That's something Prince Aveline has held her to, by the way. You've all been invited back to the prince's chambers in the town hall at least once since then, politely asked to drink of her vitae For Samantha's sake, for loyalty's sake, the prince said. There have been so many questions swirling in your minds. Where did Valerie go? Did Sam have something to do with her disappearance? Who is Andrea Church? What's her game? And were the words of Dirge the Lupine true? Is Samantha Stokes the secret architect behind everything? So far, you still don't have concrete answers to any of them. You haven't seen Sam since that night in the prince's chambers. You've tried to arrange meetings, you've tried to ask where you stand, and when that failed, outright demanded to see her to set the record straight. And every single time, she's told you the same thing. She's busy. Someone's making moves on her, and she needs to get to the bottom of it. She needs to be in control. Then, she seemingly vanished. Stopped answering calls altogether, and now, nobody's seen G-Town's consul in weeks. And that's had some strange side effects. The most apparent being the matters of the education of new vampires. Tig. Elaine's education. Elaine's onboarding, her initial instruction in the ways of the night has fallen to you, her sire. A very strange predicament for a gangrel, but something that Tig has squared his shoulders and devoted himself to without much complaint. And so I'll ask you, how has Elaine's education gone? Have you taught her how to hunt? What have you taught her to hunt? How much have you allowed her to immerse herself in the world that you live in so far?
No. They're going to be ranch-bound at first until the features of Tig's frenzy wear off. So we're going to start out simple. This being basically starting with animals. Calling upon my Tremere contact for a little bit of bagged vitae too, so she can compare. But it's simple. She already knows most of the scene so far. Most of it is just teaching her to be around people without looking at them like hot dogs.
Teaching her how to contain herself, how to control her disciplines, and...
Yeah. Putting her in situations where, she's gonna hear the beast. And get familiar with it before she has to go out on her own and deal with.
And only having fed from humans through bagged blood, she tells you that animal blood, human blood, it seems to be all the same for her at the moment, and out of respect for Tig's ways, seems to focus on feeding from animals. You've watched her do it on the ranch. Unlike you, Tig, she doesn't seem to really have much of a way with animals. This makes sense, because she was always the brains of the operation. She ran the numbers, paid the staff, hired, interviewed, kept the business running. The animals, that was your thing. She doesn't seem to be able to talk to them the same way you can.
And a day or two after he sees that she doesn't have that affinity, once his horns and muzzle are gone, he'll start taking her into town to teach her how to hunt people.
And that she seems to be unnaturally geared up for from the get-go. As she demonstrates to you her newfound ability to twist her fingernails into the long, sharp talons of a harpy, descend upon people like a fury, drain them and leave them behind. Never killing them, but always coming upon them in a way that reminds you of a rabid animal, of a wild dog hunting its prey. One of her early conquests fought back, ripped out a pocket knife and jabbed it right into where her heart would be, and you watched as she simply shrugged off the blow as if nothing happened and continued to feed. She's taking to this vampire thing relatively quickly, and you're not sure whether you find that comforting or disconcerting.
Going full alley cat. And Tig will have a quiet word with Bunyip. If he can.
And what would you like to say to Bunyip?
I'd like to tell him that Dawkins made a big move against me. I'm still trying to figure out why. He damn near he sent some people to kill me and take my wife. I'm going to settle it my own way. I'm not asking for no help or nothing. But I want you to know this, Eve, that I'm going to try not to kill him, but he's going to have a very, very bad fucking day, so if he goes whining to the Baron later, this is the reason why, okay?
It takes a few days for Bunyip to get back to you, and when he does, his response is fairly short. Okay, do your worst. Anarchs won't turf us out. It's us keeping the lupines out, after all. Never was one for politics. And so you take that as Bunyip's blessing for now to avenge your wife. Sam's absence has also made life a bit busier for Marion. Marion, who, through a strange twist of fate, has found herself responsible for not one, but two fresh vampires. Her father, in addition to requesting her assistance with the menial tasks the Hecata have placed before him, scouting and acquiring old haunted houses so that they could extract the wraiths and then fixing them up, getting them back on the market to recoup costs. But he's also come to Marion, his sire, for advice on how to exist, how to live as a vampire, as a thin blood admittedly, but a vampire still. And since you have to educate him, Marion, as you have to take that upon yourself, you decide that now's as good a time as any to teach Flick the ropes as well. So, I've got a couple questions for you. It would be convenient to teach your father and Flick how to hunt at the same time, to form a sort of temporary coterie with them, take them out into town, and stand back and simply watch as they learn from each other, feed off each other. Is this how Marion goes about it, the efficient way, or does she devote time separately to both of her charges?
She would consider not only the efficiency, but perhaps the benefits to be gained from her father seeing how odd the order of this world can become. But I think she would eventually decide that the right thing to do is to take things one-on-one.
One-on-one. And so she splits her nights between them. Half for your dad, half for Flick. Doesn't leave a lot of time at all to handle her own affairs, but that's fine. These are her affairs for the time being. And knowing the very specific way that Marion hunts, knowing the very specific requirements that fall upon her due to her clan bane. Is this the method of hunting that she imparts upon her charges, or does she simply give them a more general instruction, how to find people on their own, how to get them somewhere out of the way, how to avoid drawing attention to yourself, and leave the actual specifics of the act up to them to learn in their own time and in their own style?
I think she would definitely leave a lot more to her father's agency than to Flick's, and she would say she would show him the ropes generally, and then she would just say that but what she does at least is uses business as a means to get what she needs. Flick, she would take a very different approach with. She's not going to teach Flick how to manipulate people into into like blood slavery, basically. I think. Go on.
Go. No, you go on. Go on.
Flick needs a delicate touch, and she needs a method that can remain subtle.
As well, because they both have their own strengths. Your father doesn't have the ability to dominate people. He's a thin blood. And sure, he can rouse the blood, he can make himself appear superficially charming, and that's what helps him fall into the routine of becoming an extortionist, as in his guise as a real estate agent, he persuades people, charms them into signing up for deals that ultimately they can't repay, save for donating their own blood. And this suits him fine.
Being a thin blood, he wouldn't have the painful kiss.
No.
Yeah.
So it's much less traumatic for his quarry as it is for yours, and that suits him fine because he confesses to you that when you described what the process is like for you, he found that incredibly distasteful, and it's one silver lining that he finds in his condition as a thin blood, that he doesn't have to deal with inflicting torture upon people just to survive.
I think Marion would impart to him, if perhaps a bit untruthfully, that she also finds it uncomfortable.
Very much so, but that's what you have to do to survive.
I think she takes a pleasure in it, but she definitely wouldn't let anyone know that.
Flick, on the other hand, Flick leans more into her status as a Malkavian, somehow able to put her prey in a false sense of ease. They see a lost little girl out at night who seems to have an incredibly piercing glare, and, well, maybe they have an initial impulse to wonder why there's a girl standing in the crowd in a nightclub seemingly unnoticed or on a street corner, but it quickly slips their mind, and before they even know what's happening, they're following her away, following her into the shadows, and, well, they never remember what happens afterwards. They're always left dazed in a half-sleep, half-awake dream, only able to remember the butterflies, the blue butterflies, and the lingering, sweet feelings of happiness and ecstasy that Flick left with them.
Marion can't help but think of the fairy tales she heard as a kid about changelings taking people away.
Indeed. And so, Flick does her very best to play the changeling, and this suits Marion just fine. No one notices her, no one asks questions, and in her Malkavian way, she lurks in the shadows, takes what she needs, and nothing more. And, of course, There's one more fledgling in the city whose education is affected by the disappearance of the consul, and that is Kat. And Kat, you've had it the roughest of all. Your first night was a literal trial of fire. And the month that followed has seen you, for the most part, feeling around and getting into the flow of this vampire thing yourself. You've had bits of advice and platitudes from the rest of the coterie, but when it comes to actually learning how this all works, how to feed without being noticed, how to just live and exist, you've sort of had to fumble your way through it.
I will say that after Tig starts taking Elaine into town, he remembers, oh yeah, her, and would call to check in and see if
Yeah,
she wanted to meet and,
the rest of the coterie checking in on you, but for the most part you've been on your own. You don't feed like anyone else in the coterie does, and this is a routine you've had to come to understand yourself. So I have a few questions for you, and the first one is, when the coterie advised you that you could never go back home, that from now on you'd live a new life, aside from your touchstone, did you ever get back into contact with anyone from your old life? Did you make a clean break, your touchstone being your only link to what you once were?
I think she's probably might have reached out to friends, to that group that she has, but not really, of course, gone into any detail. But in terms of anyone else, family or anything else, I don't think she has enough of a connection there to even kind of warrant that.
Normally this would be dangerous because old friends are a vector through which her family could learn that she's not missing at all, that she's actually still around, presumably alive and well, and try to come looking for her and in turn put themselves in incredible danger. But somehow Kat, despite being a brand new vampire, can be incredibly convincing when she wants to, and she seems to pull these old friends around her, form this circle, this inner circle of people who, well, when she tells them that she's not supposed to exist, that they're the only ones who know, and that she's counting on them to keep a secret, they do it without questioning. They seem eager to help her, to do whatever they can to do her bidding. And, well, that's made feeding a lot easier, I guess, because you don't have to risk revealing your nature to people you don't know. You don't have to risk picking people up in nightclubs and not knowing how they'll react when you ask them to let you take their blood. Instead, you simply tap your friends, call them over, tell them, without revealing your true nature, that they need to give you something. There's something that you need, and if you don't get it, things will get worse for you. And any rational person would ask questions. Any rational person would resist and try to figure out why their friend is demanding such strange, extremely intimate sacrifices from them. But Kat's presence always makes them implicitly trust her. And that's how you've been surviving for the last month, at least. So, let's get into the here and now. We open with Wolf. Tonight, Wolf, Bunyip has finally called in that boon. That boon that you've owed him for about a month now that's been hanging over your head, he's called it in. You received a text message earlier tonight, and after a few moments you were able to decipher the horrible misspellings and grammatical mistakes and the words that are half numbers rather than letters, and determine that Bunyip wants you to make someone disappear tonight. The message contained an address for a house out in the semi-rural suburbs to the west, out past Foster, surprisingly not far from where Tig's farm is. You're to make him disappear, says Bunyip. This bastard, this mongrel dog, this blogger, this journalist, he knows too much about me. And I can't have pictures of me out on the internet for anyone who wants to make a move at me to find. Make him stop and make sure he never, ever bothers me again. And so, here you are, Wolf. You're currently watching the house. You're standing across the road, scouting the lonely residents at the end of the street, currently sheltered by the shade of a copse of trees on the edge of a public park. It's a double-story house. It looks like the man's home. You can see a single black Toyota SUV in the driveway. There's a single light on in one of the upstairs rooms and another light on the first floor.
So Wolf's first instinct is to scout the place for a good hour with a pair of high-powered binoculars, just watching the comings and goings, checking out the movement. And once he's got a good idea of exactly what's going on inside the house and a general number of people, he'll shroud himself in darkness and make his way to the building to scout out the interior.
Would that be an unseen passage?
That would be an unseen passage, yes.
So go ahead, make a rouse check for me.
That is a failure. He gets hungrier.
He gets hungrier. For now, he's at hunger 2. We'll roll for the waking up for everyone later. So, scouting the house for about an hour, he determines that his quarry obviously doesn't live alone, and indeed he's not alone tonight. He's got a wife. Definitely a wife. You watch as you see her silhouette emerge in the downstairs window framed against the light as she approaches him in what must be his study or library or lounge room on the first floor. Kiss him, hug him, and then retreat upstairs. The light in the upstairs window goes off, signaling that the wife has retired to bed, and there's no other signs of life save for the man himself moving around in that downstairs study, occasionally his silhouette moving across the window. Knowing that there's at least 2 people in there, Wolf, you decide to take this slow and carefully. And do you gain entry through the front door, or do you go through the back door, or do you perhaps try to find a window that's unlocked?
Wolf has another idea. So his plan is to... How do I put this? His plan is to elbow the window of the man's car to set off the alarm.
Set off the alarm. Very interesting. So, shrouded by the darkness, no one sees you as you cross the road, make your way up the driveway. There are a couple people still up at this time of night, some lights on in the neighbouring houses, and a couple of them may be looking out onto the street, but of course they cannot see you. And when you move up to the black SUV and A few seconds later, the alarm starts to blare out. You simply stand off in the shadows, just off the side of the driveway, and as the front door opens and the man comes running out wearing boxer shorts, slippers, a dressing gown, and a t-shirt bearing a logo for a website called cryptidblog.com. Shuffles his way towards the car. He moves straight past you, blissfully unaware that you're even there. He moves up to the driver's side window and begins to unlock the door, his back turned to you as he sets to work, turning off the alarm and trying to figure out what caused it to go off in the first place.
Wolf will immediately reach for his piano wire and garrote the man as he reaches into his car.
He doesn't see you coming. He doesn't hear you. Wolf is slow. Wolf is efficient. Wolf knows what he's doing. And as the piano wire slides over his neck and you begin to pull, he gasps, begins to twitch and squirm in your arms, vainly struggling, and as the struggling grows weaker, as he begins to draw his final breaths, a woman's voice calls out, "Honey? Honey, is everything all right? Does it need to be calibrated again? Should I call 000? And you look up, noticing his wife standing in the doorway of the front door, drawn to investigate the alarm and the fact that her husband still hasn't returned after several minutes.
Cold, disciplined, and methodical. Rush job comes into effect, as well as blink. Before she knows it, Wolf is behind her, smacking her over the back of the head with a small mallet.
Go ahead.
Before he proceeds to rush inside, take the laptop, and then zip up and dispose of the man's body.
Go ahead, make a rouse check for me.
Failure, he gets hungrier.
Hungrier. Hunger 3 already, oof. And it's done. In the study, you find the man's laptop still open. He was in the midst of writing a blog post when you came upon him tonight. It's a compilation of images of a large, black, mangy dog hanging around and off the edge of the camera in a tree line, or lurking between grey tombstones in an overgrown cemetery. You scrub the blog post and close the laptop, dropping it into your bag, and as you're about to leave, you feel the beast grumbling. All this work for someone else. And no payment. No payment at all. Maybe we should take what we're owed, take it from these unfortunates, satisfy the hunger. The wife is technically lying out cold. You've dragged her back through the doorway, laid her down on the couch in the lounge room, and you're a sandman, Wolf. It's not your usual way of feeding, but if you wanted to, you could sneak a little bit from her before you leave.
No, that would go against his prey exclusion, and he knows it.
He knows it. And so he leaves her, passes her by, and when he leaves, there's no trace that the man was ever there. The blogger simply disappears. His wife will remember standing in the doorway calling out to him, and then nothing. The family will have their suspicions for years to come. Various people on the internet that he had problems with, that he offended, that may have may have taken their disputes into real life, but there's no evidence, nothing that will ever lead back to Wolf, nothing that will ever hint at the true reason for the man's disappearance. And the boon is satisfied. I won't make you roll for waking up, because you're at hunger 3, but Marion, Kat, and Tig, I would now like you to go ahead and make a rouse check to see whether you got hungrier as you awakened this night.
Ooh, new graphics. I
Nice.
don't get hungrier.
Tig's blood remains solid.
I do get hungrier.
Hunger 2 for Cat. It looks like it's going to be another routine night. Another night of educating fledglings and simply trying to survive until Marion, Tig, and Cat and Sam, and Cat and Wolf, your phones go off. A message from an unknown number, a number you've never seen before. It simply says, "Job from Sam. Made at the usual place." And you jump at the chance. She's been missing for nearly a month. And suddenly, out of the blue, she's calling you to a meeting. Could this be it? Could this be the night when everything's finally about to be aired, when all the pieces will fall into place and you'll be able to finally figure out where you stand? And so, at about 8:30 p.m, you're all assembling, making your way up the dirt path that winds up the cliff overlooking Eastern Beach towards the weathered gazebo and picnic spot that serves as your usual meeting spot for Sam. Any other time, you'd see Sam there, standing in the shadows of the gazebo, waiting for you, silently watching you approach. But tonight, it's different. There's a fairly short, rotund man with greying thin hair, wearing the uniform of a Victoria police officer. His hands are in his pockets and he seems to be nervously shuffling back and forth as he leans against the wooden railing of the gazebo, peering out into the darkness. And as he suddenly sees the coterie step out of the shadows and silently walk towards the gazebo, his eyes widen in momentary shock and fright, and he nervously waves and calls out, You're Sam's coterie, right?
That's right.
You're like her. Vamps. Yeah?
We prefer kindred, but yes, that's us.
He takes
This
a
here's
moment. Go ahead, Tig.
If this here's some kind of trap, you're really doing it badly. Just for the record, mate.
He takes one look at Tig, and you see him visibly shiver, and he says, "Oh, no. He shakes his head. "Not a trap at all. Look. It's just, I know Sam, but other vamps and, kindred and 5 at the same time. Well, look, this is new to me. Best I introduce myself, yeah?" He rubs a hand on the front of his shirt and holds out his hand with stubby fingers. He's Senior Constable Mark Webber. I'm not sure what the term is, but Sam gives me a hit of the vamp blood every month, and I handle things in the police department for make people forget things, make evidence disappear. I handle the funny business, the stuff that's not done by
Say no more, I
people.
understand.
So while this is going on, Wolf is writing in his notebook that this guy is also a loose end.
Oh yeah, very much.
Marion is writing the same in her mental notebook.
Go ahead, Tig.
I'm going to guess that she's running late. Yeah.
Oh, well, that's the thing. He says, see, I understand normally she'd meet you here. This is your usual spot, right? But she's dealing with some stuff tonight. Says the vampire prince is keeping an eye on her, and she can't, or she doesn't want anyone to know that she's got this job for you.
Remind me where we are?
So you're at your usual meeting spot with Sam, which is this gazebo on a cliff that overlooks Eastern Beach. Just, a picnic spot.
So there's no one around.
No one around. That's precisely why Sam meets you here, usually.
Yeah,
But
cool.
Sam did talk to you and send you, yeah?
Yeah, he nods nervously. Said I needed to go here, call the coterie, and get the ball rolling so that, this can be dealt with before the vampire prince and the lady from the newspaper find out. See, very important, all this is kept out from the nose of the press. I've worked very hard. We've kept it out of the press so far. Sam said there's a lady runs the newspaper who's particularly, shall I say, on tenterhooks with her at the moment. And if she finds out about this thing I'm going to task you with, well, it's going to create more problems with the Prince of the Vampires. Am I getting it across?
Mm-hmm. More or less.
Right. He says, so, like I said, I handled the funny business when the police catch wind of things that vamps did. I'm the one who covers it up or gets the information out to Sam, and well, that's what we're dealing with tonight, right? He says, she said you'd understand the phrase masquerade breach, right? You got that code, and you got to keep it all secret. So we got 2 murders, says Mark Webber. He reaches into his pocket, fishes out his smartphone, swipes a beefy thumb across the screen, and flips it around, showing you all a photograph of a conventionally attractive, well-built young man with long flowing blonde hair. He says, so this would be victim number 1, Simon Drummer. He was found 4 nights ago, tucked away in a storm drain. Unfortunately, by the time we got to him, the rains had made a mess of the crime scene, but, well, he was found bloodless. See, that's what made me clue on that this probably ain't a normal thing, so I let Sam know, and, well, she said to keep an eye on it, let her know if things got worse. And, well, then the second guy was found. He swipes his finger across the phone, and the picture of the conventionally attractive young man is replaced with what I would say a prototypical nerd with disheveled hair, double chin, and thick wire-framed glasses. This is Kevin Thrush, lives with his parents out in the suburbs, and he was found 2 days ago in a copse of trees, Rippleside Park down the road. He was splayed on a rock, and he was emptied of blood too. And so I contacted Sam, and something seemed to click in her head, and she said to get you involved. Now, the crime scenes were both catalogued, cleared. Nothing of note there. Rain scrubbed it clean in Simon's case, and in Carl's case, well, looks like whoever did him in didn't really leave anything behind. So I've been advised to turn the investigation over to you because Sam's seen something in this, and she won't tell me what, but she said you'd be well placed to figure it out. So, 2 guys dead, strange circumstances. They're both down in the morgue waiting to be processed. He reaches once more into his pocket, fishes out a plastic key card and places it down on the wooden picnic table. If you want to get into the morgue, this'll get you in, but it'll be up to you to sneak into the station and actually get there. See, about 6 months ago, we had a thing where one of the coppers down at the station, well, someone did him in, slit his throat and stuffed him in one of the morgue drawers, right? So now you can't bring people in without prior written permission from the sergeant. So my card will get you into the morgue itself, but getting into the station, actually getting to the morgue, that one's up to you. But Sam said you'll be able to handle it. Otherwise, once more, for the final time, he reaches into his pocket and fishes out a small handheld notepad, plonks it down on the table next to the key card. These are the addresses for both of the victims. Now, I'm aware that they both still lived with their families. Simon was getting into footy, playing for the local uni. He was living on campus, but his registered address was still his parents'. I've made sure that no one from the police have spoken to the families yet, so any info they have, it's up to you to get, and hopefully it'll put you on the right track. The family's been told not to speak to anyone, not to divulge any details of the crimes themselves, active investigation and all that. So hopefully you'll be the first to get to him. He winks. He says, turns out, when you tell people to forget something, I'm surprisingly good at making them actually forget. I think that comes from the vamp blood. So I've done everything I can to make sure you've got free reign of this. And I've kept it on the down low. But Sam said, she said to make sure you understand that this doesn't get out in the open. If the press finds out, game over. So that's about it, he says, chuckling. Any questions?
So Wolf muses on some things, but doesn't bring anything up.
In the background, on the edge of the gazebo, Bouncer just sort of contemplates the man, and then she shrugs, indicating that she's got enough to work with. Tig, Marion? Or Cat?
So talk with the families, get into the morgue, cover up that the bodies is bloodless, more or less, yeah?
Yeah, I can handle that. Like I said, couple people in the department.
The bodies of the morgue, then.
It's up to you what you want to investigate. He says Sam wants you to find out who's doing it, and quietly bring them to heel, as it were. Now, I can get the police involved for you, but I'd rather not. Like I said, my usual modus operandi here is to calmly tell the key players to forget about it and move on. Now, the number I contacted you on, you can give me a call on that if you need anything, or if you need me to give a message to Sam or something like that. But look, usually Sam handles the vamp side of things, so uncharted waters for me from here on out, so I'm not exactly sure how much help I can be, but if there's anything you think I can help with, you got the number. Alright, he looks around and once again takes in each of you in turn. Bouncer, then Tig, then Marion, then Wolf. seeming to memorize your faces, commit every detail to memory. And then when he's done, his eyes narrow, lingering on Kat. And he says, sorry, Sam gave me the names of everyone, a vague description, but don't recognize you.
Oh, I'm new.
New, huh?
It's also none of your business.
I'm sorry. Is this any of your business at all?
Oh, I guess not, he says, chuckling. It's just, Sam gave me a list of phone numbers, said these were the people currently attached to her, and, I like to know who I'm working with just in case, but I get it, I can take a hint above my pay grade, right?
More or less.
Absolutely.
So Wolf leans into his ear, and so everyone can hear, says, "The less you know, the better."
He just nods, not saying anything, but telling you that he agrees, and then he chuckles as he backs towards the edge of the gazebo and says, all right then, well, look, I've passed on Sam's message, given you a way to get started, so best of luck, and, all goes well, I won't have to see you again, right? And your next meeting will be with Sam, once all this is calmed down. Turu! And then he, without taking his eyes off the coterie, sort of makes his way, moving backwards down the stairs onto the dirt path. He backs down the path a couple of meters, and then when he's finally satisfied that you're not going to eviscerate him, shrugs, turns around and begins to shuffle up the path towards the car park attached to the street, disappearing into the darkness.
I'll talk about sweating like a pig. I feel really bad about this. This is shaky. This is so shaky.
What are we thinking Sam's angle is here then?
Well, it's clear she has no issue getting in contact with us. But she doesn't want to see us herself.
Indeed.
See, it seems to me that there's no matter of actually seeing us. It's a decision she's making. Regardless, this is a job that we have to do.
Bouncer just looks at Kat and says, I guess tonight you're going to figure out why Masquerade breaches are a big deal. And why you have to be very careful with who you feed on and how, right? So stick around, kid. Go ahead, Kat.
I was just responding.
Yeah. So, Bouncer claps her hands together. Definitely out of character for Sam to send a ghoul to meet with us. Apparently she's being watched after that thing she pulled with the prince. And I gotta say, I found myself wondering what, if anything, she has to do with Val going AWOL, but I don't suppose we could do anything about that right now, so we'd best get to work before this comes back to haunt us.
Elaine was thinking there was something hinky with the drop in the paper, and then Val disappearing right after. So I got some questions for Sam when we run into her again. But yeah, we need to take care of this. Maybe we'll find a clue or two along the way. I don't know.
It seems to me the best way to go about this would be to split our resources.
So
I don't know about you, but getting 6 people into a police station unnoticed, that seems like a pretty tall order.
Unless you're planning on getting arrested.
There's only a few of us going to be any good in the morgue, really. And
So-
a bag's not it for me.
Marion coughs.
So, with that in mind, you've decided to split your efforts. Some will go to the morgue, others will speak to the families. Who's going to be doing what?
Wolf brings up the important elephant in the room in regards to investigating the bodies. Look, I recognize we're going to have to dispose of these so that nobody finds out anything further from an autopsy, but Hakata, is there anything that you can do in regards to discovering information or evidence that could help us along our way? Or should we just dispose of them?
Does Marion know what clan Wolf is?
Yeah, she'd be aware that he's Banu Hakim after the meeting
Okay.
with the prince.
Well, Hakim, I do have some particular beneficial abilities in this scenario, but look, it's not my particular forte. I'm no cross.
And then Marion would also know that if a wraith were to be summoned, it would probably be better done at a place where there'd be a likely fetter for the wraith, which would probably not be in the morgue. It would be probably at the crime scene or at the family home.
So obviously, Wolf has no idea how all this works.
Yeah. But he's just been told probably nothing that she could glean from the bodies.
Like, if that's the situation, I can move them.
But getting them out again.
Wolf has a plan. Assuming that the group isn't too large.
So, would you all like to send Wolf to the morgue on his own to remove those bodies? Or would you like to have someone to go with him for backup? Is there anyone else who's decent enough at stealth, perhaps?
I mean, if
That's
we're
not
doing
me.
that, makes sense. Well, if you're sure you can't do nothing with them bodies, I mean, Cat, you could back up Wolf, yeah? It's either that or deal with the families and investigate crime
Okay.
scenes, right?
I could back up Wolf, yeah. So I'm sneaky.
You're comfortable with that?
I feel like it's a better use of my abilities than trying to confront people about it.
Look, everything goes well. She won't be seen. I won't be seen.
Fair
It's not
enough.
the being seen I'm worried about.
And then that leaves Marion, Tig, and Bouncer to handle the families. And potentially glean any clues that might be in the family homes. And so your course of action decided, you step out of the shadow of the gazebo, make your way down the same dirt path that Senior Constable Weber just shuffled away along, and arrange to meet here again at the end of the night, after you've done your investigations to fill each other in. Then you split up, make your way towards your vehicles, and several engines roar to life as you're carried into the cold, harsh lights of the G-Town CBD. So, let's go with the morgue first. And by the way, Paradox, go ahead and roll a rouse check for Bouncer to see if she got hungry or if she awoke tonight.
Yes, she did.
She did. Hunger 2. So, Wolf, as your car deftly, quietly negotiates the streets of the CBD, you contemplate Kat sitting there on your passenger seat, and you can't help but wonder whether she's going to help things run smoother, or if she's going to serve as another unknown variable that could complicate things. Your beast growls in the back of your head. More busy work, more messes to clean that we didn't even make, and no thanks. Never any thanks. And I'll ask a question for you, Wolf. Would you like to hunt before you do the task at hand, knowing that hunting will give you less time to get the task done?
What time is it?
So it's currently about 9 p.m, I'd say.
Right, so the late shift would just be starting.
Yeah.
Yeah, Wolf probably doesn't have time to organize his normal routine of feeding, so he'll have to go without.
And you find yourself silently cursing Bunyip for calling in that boon tonight of all nights, when there's actual serious work on the line. Wolf's car pulls up at the end of the block upon which G-Town's central police station stands. It's attached to the local magistrate's court and coroner's office, and that's why there's a morgue attached to what is ostensibly just a normal regional police station. You know, parking the car in the car park in front of the building would probably be a bad idea, but you also don't want the car too far away because you have to get the bodies out, get them to your car, and hopefully not be seen lunking them down the street. So where would you like to park your car?
I believe that on the following street corner would be a good spot.
So you drive past the large modern building, past the parking lot that's filled with police cruisers, and come to the next street corner. You haven't exactly cleared the police station. The street corner's almost directly right behind it, but the car's a bit less visible here. There's no CCTV cameras on the street, and it's unlikely anyone in the police station would actually see Wolf's car unless they were specifically looking out of one of the few windows that look down on this street corner. So you slide your car up to the curb and kill the engine, and then you and Kat step out, your boots crunch down on the cracked footpath, and you begin walking towards the car park, past the thick iron gates, towards the imposing police station. So how do you want to do this? There's a front entrance, and the front entrance is lit up, open. The police station is open at this time of night, and through the glass doors you can see a reception area with a uniformed police officer behind a counter and another uniformed police officer just sort of milling about in the waiting room, chatting with her. But the rest of the police station doesn't appear to be that active. There's a pathway leading from the parking lot around the side, presumably towards a smoking area and a back entrance, and that part of the lot is completely shrouded in darkness.
So, Wolf's initial idea was to use some of his superhuman strength and athleticism to clamber up the power pole and disconnect the power from the police station directly.
Ooh, turn the lights off and then what?
Make them rely on backup power.
Backup power, and then what, just stroll in through the front door?
Not exactly, but that's the first step.
So, Kat, you see Wolf just stop in his tracks and peer up at one of the power poles, contemplating the transformer box up at the top. You get an idea of what he may be planning. Do you have any ideas of your own?
I will say that Wolf is going to give her a look that says, "Do your job." It's up to her what that means.
So, I mean, I think Kat knows that a building like this also has, is emergency power. So, like, a generator is going to turn on as soon as Wolf cuts that. So,
but the emergency generator might not be able to power everything within the building. So, a couple things might be knocked out. There might be a couple of security cameras in the building that might stop functioning. You, for your part, Kat, you know that with your unseen passage, you could just stroll in through the front door and be completely unnoticed, but you're not sure whether that keeps you hidden from electronic surveillance. You haven't built up the courage to test that theory yet.
I suppose she will, like, start trying to go inside the building. Or you said there was a dark section
there's
behind.
A path that sort of leads off the parking lot around the side of the building, and you presume, based on, what this building looks like, that it probably leads to, like, a little courtyard around the back where people go for smoke breaks or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Can I see cameras, like, on the outside of the building?
Go ahead, make a wits awareness roll for me, please.
Okay. It's a success, too.
You spy a single camera mounted to a street light in the very center of the parking lot. It seems to be on a swivel, rotating from left to right, taking in a full sweeping view of the parking lot. And when it's at its rightmost state, at the very end of the sweep, it would be able to see the mouth of that little alleyway that leads to the smoking area, meaning that you'd have approximately 5 to 10 seconds to get to that path and get around the corner of the building before the camera sees you.
Okay. Well, I'm going to wait until
Wolf cuts the power.
Wolf finishes, yeah.
Sure. So, Wolf, go ahead and make me a dexterity plus athletics roll, and you may add your celerity if you like, because you have rapid reflexes.
Success of 4.
Success of 4, and before your eyes, Cat, Wolf seems to just spring forwards, moving as a blur. He shimmies up the path, reaches into his pocket, slides on a glove, and just wrenches some wires out of the back of the transformer box. There's a loud hum, and the transformer box shudders, and then all of the street lights in the parking lot instantly die. The light beyond the front doors, the reception area of the station, is die, and the reception area is plunged into darkness. And then, about a full second later, you hear some sort of mechanical groan coming from somewhere inside the building, and the lights once again flicker on. Not as strong as they were before, and a couple of the lights in the building are very obviously flickering as they struggle to stay on, with considerably less voltage being pumped into them. The backup power is on, and it seems to have taken a couple of the security measures out, you're relieved to see, Kat, as you look up, the camera no longer swivels on the streetlight. In fact, the red LED has just completely turned off, indicating the camera's no longer even active. Beyond the front doors in the reception area, you see the uniformed police officer behind the desk reach for her phone and bark an order to the other officer. He nods and runs away, disappearing into one of the corridors beyond the reception area.
So as Wolf shimmies down the pole and wrenches the glove off, throwing it into the gutter, just down the storm drain, he meets up with Kat and starts striding down the alleyway. Down into the dark.
He said Hunger 3, so does he activate Unseen Passage or not?
No, he doesn't need it yet.
But Kat, do you activate your Unseen Passage?
I do.
Yeah, go ahead, make a rouse check for me.
Fail.
Fail, you get hungrier. Hunger 3 already. The beast grumbles as you follow Wolf into the alleyway. Entire building in darkness. You could take one of them, you could take any one you wanted, and they wouldn't know. You don't need to roll, but Wolf, you're not obfuscated. You're relying on your instincts and your senses and sheer luck, so I'd like you to go ahead and make me a composure plus stealth roll. You stay cool, calm, and collected.
Success of 4.
Success of 4. You make your way down the concrete path, and sure enough, it soon opens into a little courtyard. There's a couple of concrete tables scattered around the open square, and a single brick island in the center, from which several bushes and trees spring out, adding some life to the otherwise lifeless place. There's a single police officer kneeling over the concrete table, taking the last dregs of a little nub of a cigarette. And as you enter the courtyard and quickly cross it, making your way to the staff entrance of the building that even now is still partially open, and slip inside. Kat's able to do it without any trouble at all, and the officer isn't even aware that she was ever there. But Wolf, you have to play it a bit more carefully. You make sure you stop for a moment, watch his eye line, try to make sense of what he can see, what he can hear, and then sticking to the shadows offered by the foliage in the center, slowly creep across the courtyard and then slip through the open door, presumably following Kat. Once you're inside, it's a simple enough exercise getting to the morgue. The corridors inside are a veritable maze, but thankfully whoever designed the police station has put up ample signs at every corner pointing you where you need to go. Coroner's office this way, morgue to the left. There's a couple close calls, a few times where a police officer unannounced steps out of an adjoining room and Kat has to press herself against the wall so he doesn't bump into her, and when Wolf has to quickly scramble for cover, hiding in the shadow behind a vending machine or stopping and waiting in a broom closet as people pass by. But soon enough... Go ahead, Wolf.
Yeah, I was going to say, on their journeys, did they happen to spot a break room somewhere?
I'd say as you move beyond what would be considered the police station and into the more courthouse area, into the coroner's area, you pass an open archway that opens into a cafeteria of sorts. There's a big bain-marie at the back that's got steaming hot food causing fog to wallow up against the glass, and strangely, or maybe not for this time of night, the cafeteria is completely empty.
Wolf calls out quietly to Kat, just to find out where she is, assuming that she's followed him.
Believe she has, haven't you, Kat?
Yeah, I'll just...
Her voice sort of emanates from the air vaguely in front of you. Here?
Do you smoke, Kat?
No, I do not.
You're going to start. And he pulls out a lighter and a pack of cigarettes. Here's what I need you to do. I'm heading to the morgue. I need you to create a shelter under one of the tables, find something that's flammable, and a bin. Stick it under the tables. You're going to start a fire.
Okay, I take the materials and I'm gonna head to the cafeteria.
Step into
Catch
the
up with me in the morgue when
cafeteria.
you're done. I'll know when you've succeeded. If everything goes correctly,
Nice.
the fire alarm and sprinkler systems will come on, but they won't put out the fire.
She nods.
Wolf hears Kat's footsteps receding into the distance as she makes her way into the cafeteria, and then he continues on, heading towards the morgue. And Kat, you're still obfuscated. No one can see you, and even though there is a single person attending the kitchen at the back of the cafeteria, that every few seconds seems to step out of the kitchen, once again see that no one's here, and then step back inside to continue whatever they were doing. You're able to slip behind the counter into the kitchen area itself. And I'd like you to go ahead and make a wits or resolve plus investigate check for me.
Okay, so I could do resolve investigate.
Yep, resolve investigate, go ahead.
That's a success of 5.
It's a success of 5, wow. So you don't want to necessarily start rifling through the drawers and cupboards in the kitchen, because you may be invisible, but there's a cook roaming around, moving between the pantry and the kitchen and the cafeteria. You don't want her to see doors opening, freezers being rifled through. So you scan the kitchen area for anything flammable that may just be out in the open, and you get lucky. There's a big industrial-sized bottle of vegetable oil just sitting on a counter next to one of the stovetops. Still mostly full.
Okay.
You also see the perfect place to ignite the fire. You see a little hole in the ceiling above, a sort of hole that's shaped like a circle, and you can see a single red light in the darkness beyond, and you quickly recognize this as a fire alarm. It's a smoke alarm. And it just so happens to be right in the very corner of the kitchen, just beyond the stovetops, where you could very easily drag a bin and shove it in the corner and have it be unnoticed until the smoke alarm goes off.
So there's still a cook in the kitchen, though. Trying to think if there's something she'll see that relates to her cook experience here that could kind of draw her away. So are there refrigerators like in this room? Can she go into
Sure
like
are.
another room?
Yep, there's a big metal door at the back that you recognize as like a walk-in freezer, but there's also a
Okay.
couple of refrigerators just pressed up against the back wall. Currently still humming, powered by the backup power.
If I can, I'd like to make my way to the freezer and knock a bunch of stuff over and then get out of there really quickly to hopefully distract the cook.
Yeah, sure. I'd like you to go ahead and make me a resolve plus stealth check.
It's a success of 3.
Success of 3. You wait till she passes by you, once again returning to the cafeteria, and then you head towards the freezer, wrench the door open, step inside, and it's very cramped. There's barely enough room for you to just step inside, and then you're already face to face with all the shelves. There's boxes of fruit, vegetables, a couple trays of meat, and you just grab one of the boxes and wrench it off the shelf, upending it. As you hear the woman in the other room gasp in shock, in fright, hearing the cacophony of things clattering off the shelf in the freezer, you turn and run, scrambling back into the kitchen itself. Just as she steps through the door, and if you were a second later, she would have just bowled right into you as she made her way towards the freezer. Once she's in there, taking stock of all of the damage and scratching her head, wondering how this heavy box of watermelons fell off the shelf and created such a noise, you're getting to work, dragging a little waste basket over to the corner, unscrewing the lid of the vegetable oil, pouring about a quarter of the bottle in, enough that it pools at the bottom of the waste basket, and then you reach for the pack of cigarettes.
Oh,
So, go ahead.
if I may interject also, is there... I want to make sure, because I feel like Kat would also know that grease in this case isn't going to make a lot of smoke.
Yeah.
And is going to grab some other things, maybe even water if that's available, and just other random stuff that might catch on fire and chuck that into.
You never put oil in it. You never put water in a grease fire. She knows that well enough. The vegetable oil's just enough to get it started, and as you light the cigarette and then fling it down into the bin, instantly the oil catches alight. Little flames spread across the surface and the oil begins to bubble and sizzle, but there's not a lot of smoke, so you grab a bottle of water off a nearby shelf, unscrew it and pour it in, and there's a loud hiss as the water mixes with the oil, and suddenly a big cloud of black smoke just erupts from the bin, seeming to make a beeline directly for the little hole cut out of the ceiling above, and sure enough, the smoke alarm goes off. Beep, 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 beep. And a few seconds later, fire alarms throughout the building begin to ring. Reminds you of school bells. And the term "saved by the bell" sort of just drifts into the back of your mind.
She's gonna kind of press into a corner while the cook runs out.
Yeah, wait for the coast to be clear before she slips out and heads after Wolf. Wolf, you turn a corner and find yourself heading towards the morgue at the end of the corridor, and just as you're approaching it, you hear the fire alarms ring out, the loud bells that seem to reverberate within the walls themselves. A couple of doors in the corridor are flung open, and people wearing cop uniforms and suits and civilians alike begin to scramble out into the corridor, running past you as you crouch and wait behind one of the vending machines. And then you approach the morgue itself. There's a CCTV camera just above the morgue door, peering down, that would record anyone going in or out, but with the building only on backup power, it's not functioning, meaning you're free to enter at your own leisure.
Yeah, we'll pierce through if there's a little window in the door or just a window to the morgue. He's going to peer through there first to see who's still left in there, if anyone. He doesn't want to get bowled over by somebody breaking through the door.
Yeah, there sure is. So the morgue door is like one of those big, thick, black sort of hospital doors, and there's a square-shaped window. It's not a big window, but it's enough to peer into the morgue itself, and you seem to be fairly lucky tonight. The lights aren't even on inside, indicating that no one is in there and no one's been in there for at least a couple hours tonight.
Wolf's going to make his way inside there. He's going to fling open the door and get to work. If I may take some liberties, dashing inside just as the sprinkler system starts to go off.
Yeah, sure. You swipe the card and the door clicks and springs open, and just as you step inside the morgue, the sprinklers fire, water raining down in the corridor. You pull the door shut behind you and fumble around for a light switch, and soon the morgue is doused in cold fluorescent light. There are 4 metal cadavers laid out along the tiled floor, and 2 of them are currently occupied, presumably by the bodies of the murder victims. It doesn't look like an autopsy's been conducted yet. You can't spot any immediate signs of any incisions or cuts or any stitches indicating that someone's opened them up. They're still waiting to be processed. As such, there aren't any coroner's notes or any autopsy papers to read, but you could examine the bodies yourself and see if there's anything you could glean. Although I don't know if Wolf's that knowledgeable in these matters.
He's not going to spend any time getting any medical knowledge from them, but he did pay attention to the pictures that the constable showed them, and he's going to make 100% sure that the faces there match the ones that he knows.
Yeah, so it's immediately obvious as you approach them that the faces match the ones you saw in the photos. These are indeed the right people. But go ahead and roll me a intelligence or wits plus investigation to just see if there's anything else that immediately stands out to you.
It's only a successive one.
Only a successive one. So, you're not a doctor, Wolf. You don't know anything. You don't really know much about medicine. And far be it from you to determine the cause of death, but you notice that both bodies are covered in nicks and marks, indicating that they've been savaged with some sort of slashing weapon. You recognize a couple of the marks as indicative of stab wounds or slash wounds from some sort of blade. But there's nothing else notable about them. You quickly check the necks and the arms, the wrists, the ankles, and the extremities for signs of a vampire having fed from them, as it's very obvious to you looking at them from the pale pallor of their skin that they're pretty much empty of blood. And you find no fang marks at all. Given the kindred's ability to close fang marks with saliva, though, this doesn't necessarily rule out that these are victims of a vampire, though it does stick in your head why whoever killed them would go to the effort of closing up the fang marks and still leave all of these very obvious stab wounds and slashing marks all over their bodies. You're about to get to work securing the bodies to get them out of the room when you notice one last thing. Very small detail that you probably wouldn't have noticed if you hadn't been checking their faces to make sure that these are the same people in the photos, but on the left earlobe of each body, there's a tiny little marking. Somebody has carved something into the skin of the earlobe. A single straight line, straight down. And on the second victim, there are two of them.
Ooh, that's bad news. As a player, I can tell that it's probably them marking the number of victims as they go.
Yeah, I'd say Wolf's got
But-
high enough intelligence that he'd probably come to the same conclusion.
Cool, okay. Yeah, he's going to try and put that out of his mind as much as possible for now to get the job done, but it's going to be brought up later when they're investigating the bodies.
So, how are you going to get to work getting the bodies out of here as you hear the door click and open and look over your shoulder and... Well, you don't see Kat. You just see the door opening, admitting nobody in particular, and then slowly shutting, clicking again.
Excellent work. I can expect as good from you next time we need you as well.
Thank you.
For now, we have a job to do.
That's a statement, not a question.
So Wolf goes about finding some body bags, because there would be plenty in a morgue.
There's a whole stack of them in a cupboard off in the corner.
And works on one of the bodies, zipping it up, getting it all tied up, and throws the other one to Kat.
Kat. Putting a body in a body bag, you're not going to go about it as clinically and efficiently as Wolf. So I'll go ahead and ask you to roll me a resolve plus composure to keep up.
This is all very intentional, by the way.
Yeah.
Putting
Success
Kat through
rate.
paces.
Place your hands down on the blonde man's body, and as soon as you do, an image flashes in the back of your mind. That bloodless, broken body of Mike, your co-worker, your first kill, haunting you. And you cradle this bloodless body in your hands for a moment until you return to reality, shaking your head to jolt you back into the game, and you get to work unzipping the body bag and rolling the body off the cadaver into it. You manage to keep up with Wolf surprisingly well. He's done in an instant, of course, but you manage to get your body into the body bag and zip it up, and then hoist it over your shoulder without much problem. And then, Wolf, seeing that she actually got the job done, do you have any words of encouragement?
Yeah, he does. I was going to pipe up with that. Look, this isn't an easy job, and this isn't an easy life, but you're doing well. It's not going to get any easier from here on out either. Only harder.
She nods.
So now we have some things to carry.
Weighed down by the body, you see the air around where Kat is distort, and then she blinks back into view, her obfuscate finally broken, but that's okay. You can still hear the bells ringing outside, you can still see the fine mist of the sprinklers raining down in the corridor, and with these bodies slung over your shoulders, it's a very simple matter of exiting the room and heading back the way you came. But I will ask both of you to go ahead and make me wits stealth rolls.
2 successes for me.
2 successes. And how'd Wolf go?
3.
3. 5 successes altogether, and I was asking for 4 because there's not going to be a lot of people wandering around. At this point, they're still not sure whether it's just a drill or there's an actual fire, and they would have all relocated out to the parking lot to evacuate. So, it's fairly easy for you to make your way through the maze of corridors. At one point, you see a man dressed in a yellow firefighter's jacket come charging down a corridor towards the cafeteria, and you just stop, pull the bodies into a little office, and wait for him to run past, and then you continue. And, well, approximately 10-15 minutes later, you're standing once again on the street corner in front of Wolf's car as he pops the boot and lowers his body into it. And it's at this point, Kat, as you're about to lower your own body into the boot of Wolf's car, you notice that there's already someone in there. A man wearing a dressing gown and boxer shorts, wearing a t-shirt advertising a website called cryptidblog.com. His eyes staring lifelessly, glassly up at you as his tongue lolls out the side of his mouth.
So, noticing that Kat is looking in the boot, Wolf was in the middle of like a bit of a discussion about how, these things always are a bit of a chance game, leaving a premises, so you make sure you stack the odds in your favor, blah, blah, blah. Before he notices her eyes looking down and quickly closes the lid and says, "This is why it's important to keep the masquerade. This is what happens. Keep it above everything else."
I understand.
It's not like I like doing this.
Lowers the body into the trunk, and then Wolf slams it shut, and the job is done. You take one look at each other and silently open the doors of the car, slide in, and the vehicle carries you off into the darkness with no one aware that you were even there. We go to the other group. So, both of the families apparently lived out in the southern suburbs, over across the Ballerine River, towards what most people of G-Town would call the university area. Fate smiles on you tonight, as it turns out that one of the residences is almost directly on the way to the second one, so you have a clear order to visit them in. First up is the family of the first victim, Simon Drummer. Marion's Mercedes. She drives a Mercedes-Benz, doesn't she?
She does, yes.
Yeah. Marion's Mercedes-Benz, followed by Tig's Ute, sort of stand out in the sleepy suburban streets. One car that is far beyond anything anyone around here could ever afford, and another car that looks like it'd be more at home in a monster truck arena. At this time of night, though, the suburbs are quite sleepy. Most of the people have already retired to bed, and the only people who are awake are the weird night owls and those that enjoy the peace and quiet. So, you don't draw any attention as you turn into Gibson Street, park the cars on the curb in front of the Drummer household, a relatively standard suburban townhouse made of orange brick, single story, 3-bedroom, almost completely indistinguishable from the houses to its left and right. There's a single red sedan in the driveway, and The big window that looks out onto the front yard has lights on. Even though the curtains are drawn, someone is still home and, more importantly, still awake.
In that case, I don't think any stealthing around is a wise idea.
And so as you alight your vehicles and make your way up the driveway, is there any particular way you'd like to approach this?
Remind me of the details of the case.
So, this is the family of Simon Drummer, victim number 1, the young, conventionally attractive, well-built blonde man. The guy who was playing footy for the local uni. He was found 4 days ago tucked in a storm drain. But the rains had already cleared the crime scene of any evidence. You're not sure how much of this his family knows.
Sorry, who's here?
So it's you, Wolf, it's you, Tig, and Bouncer.
Okay, first thought, and this is out of character, that I had is maybe we could pose as social workers.
Yeah, I was figuring we might want to, work on something, because 3 random people coming up asking questions is going to be a bit odd.
Yeah, that's why I thought social workers might be a good cover, because we're not going to pass as cops.
Yeah, well, Marion might have been able to, wearing her, her business casual, but when you've got Tig and Bouncer dressed in, respectively, denim overalls and a flannelette t-shirt and a leather jacket over a party dress, then no.
But social workers, yeah, and you probably wouldn't get people asking for ID as much.
So you step up onto the doorstep.
Are we all good with that?
I'm going to let you be social workers. While you have a talk with him, I'm going to hang by the ute and see if any of the animals notice anything weird.
Okay.
Probably a good idea.
Yeah.
So Tig wishes you luck and heads back down the driveway back towards the ute. And as he walks, you can hear him whistling, chittering, making animal sounds. Tig, go ahead and rouse the blood and roll your animal whispers for me.
Right.
So we're just here to find out if anything seems sus.
Maybe,
More
if you're lucky, find a lead that might give you something else to investigate.
And cover some tracks. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So, Marion and Bouncer, you're left on the doorstep. The wire security door in front of you, the number 12 gleaming in brass numerals on it. Who's gonna knock on the door?
Well, if
After
you want
you.
yeah, if you don't want to, I will.
Yeah. Alright, so you're posing as social workers? I would ask both of you to go ahead and make me a manipulation subterfuge roll.
Yeah, this is good for me. Ooh, I'm gonna re-roll that. 4.
4? And how did Bouncer go?
Would looks apply to this?
Yeah, I'd say look supplies. Go ahead and add 2 extra dice.
Yeah.
It's easier to trust good-looking people. That's just the truth, so...
Isn't that a fun fact?
Well, I can't reroll, so I'm just gonna have to deal with it.
What'd you get?
A messy 9.
Messy 9! Okay,
Yeah.
and Marion, what did you get?
I got 4, yeah.
And
Yeah,
unfortunately, both the criticals are on the hunger die, so I cannot reroll that.
Yeah, so 13 successes altogether, which is a good number, but messy crit. So Marion just raps her knuckles against the door, and a few seconds later, the wooden door on the other side slowly opens, and on the other side of the screen door, you find yourself face to face with a middle-aged woman in a pink dressing gown. There are stains on her cheeks indicating that she's been crying. She peers out at you and sniffs. Can I help you?
What was his name again?
His name was Simon Drummer.
I take it that I'm at the right address then. I was looking for the family of one Mr. Drummer.
Drummer. Yes, I'm Eileen Drummer. I'm Simon's mother. I'm sorry, are you the police? The police said someone would be coming to talk to us, but it's been 4 days now, and...
We're not police. We're just social workers. This is a pro bono thing. My name's Maria.
And at this point, I would like to say that Bouncer's compulsion kicks in. Rebellion. The Brujah craves to take a stance against those who represent the status quo. Does not relent until they've gone against orders, expectations, or changed someone's mind. And during this compulsion, they suffer a -2 to all dice pools. And as Marion gestures towards you, Bouncer, asking you to introduce yourself to play along with her charade, the beast growls, rattling the bars of its cage. Don't let this bitch tell you what to do. You can do this your way. Show her how it's done.
I was not prepared to try and play like that.
You start to see in your mind this almost as a race to see whether you can get the information before Marion does, and how efficiently you can do it without having to dance around with formalities and pretending to be someone you're not. So as she introduces herself as Maria and then gestures towards you, what do you say?
I guess, yeah, then she just introduced herself as Bouncer then, yeah.
Bouncer? Philippa, you can call me Bouncer, you say, holding out your hand to the woman, and through the slightly open door she reaches out, shakes it with a concerned look on her face. She raises an eyebrow in Marion's direction. Bouncer? Far be it from me to question, but I've never heard of a social worker with a nickname.
It's something new we're trying.
That right, she says, her eyebrow still raised.
Marion works on that quickly and says, yes, actually. How could you actually... I'll give you a survey later. May we come in?
Go ahead, make me a charisma manipulation roll.
Charisma manipulation?
Charisma manipulation. Oh, sorry, charisma subterfuge. Sorry.
Sure. that would have been very nice for me. 3.
3. She stops, her gaze lingering on you for a moment, judging you, her eyebrow still raised, and then after a few moments, finally, she shrugs. She sniffles, wiping a solitary tear from her right eye, and then she nods and she says, Sure, come in. She fully opens the door and welcomes you into her home, leading you down the hallway into the lounge room, which is the only room still lit. And there on the coffee table, there's an an array of photographs of who must be who must be Simon as a child, as a teenager, school reports, his high school diploma. Clear she's been in the midst of choosing the photo she's going to use for his memorial. I'm sorry about the mess, she says, as she gestures towards the couch. It's, also sudden, and burying a kid, and he was such a good kid, It's just sometimes they made him so angry,
They being...
Oh, you said you're a social worker, right?
Yes, I'm afraid the file I've been given is rather limited.
I know that Simon's had some trouble with some ex-girlfriends, and I know that last time it happened that one of the conditions was that he get counseling, and so I assumed... Please, may I ask why you're here? I mean, you're aware of what's happened to Simon, right?
Well, our job is to first reach out on behalf of the police and bring up a report that's going on. Yeah, yes, I am aware of what's happened. Our job is to, reach out, provide hopefully some comfort to you in these times, and ideally to help the authorities get a more complete picture of what might have been going on in a more comfortable way than bringing around police officers in uniforms. You understand?
I think, she says. She turns to Bouncer and she says, and Miss Bouncer, you're a counselor or a police officer, or if you're assisting the authorities, I imagine you must be working for them in some capacity.
Yes, I'm a counselor as well.
Counselor, right. Well then you're obviously aware of Simon's anger issues. And, well, I'll come right out and say it. I think it was fairly obvious that the mother of that Miranda girl was involved in this.
Miranda, I've only got really a stub about her in the file. Could you fill us in on that?
Of course.
And Marion produces a legal pad from her handbag.
Yeah, it doesn't have anything. It doesn't have anything about Simon written in it, but it's enough to sell it. Actually, she says, raising an eyebrow, looking at Bouncer, that jacket you wear. I recall his ex was she was a bit of a party girl, right? She used to. Well, no offense, but you don't really look much like a social worker. You look like you spend some time in a nightclub, and just looking at you, I'm more and more reminded of that girl. I'm sorry. You're not here on behalf of Miranda, are you? Because I have to say, if that's the case, then, well, we're grieving, and this is very, very insulting. I don't understand why she would send somebody now after what happened.
Ma'am, I think I understand where you're coming from, but I'm we're really not familiar with this Miranda character yet. We've only done a little bit of background, and that's kind of why we're here, is to get more understanding of the situations that might have led up to such an unfortunate event. Can you tell us more about this Miranda?
She thinks for a moment, and I would like you to go ahead and make me a charisma, subterfuge, or persuasion roll, and I'd like Bouncer to make the same, but a dice penalty of 2.
Okay.
Your compulsion.
I'm going to try and get through this without using disciplines where possible.
Yeah.
I think even Marion would feel bad about that.
Yeah, it's a grieving mother.
What was the pool again, sorry?
So charisma plus either persuade or subterfuge.
And then...
And then 2 penalty dice because of your compulsion.
Yeah. And then would looks cancel that out?
Yeah, so basically, essentially just your looks doesn't apply.
Yeah.
And I'll be asking for 5 successes between you.
Well, Bouncer got 5.
Oh, how'd Marion get? I'll give more information for extra success.
Yeah, Marion got a 3.
3, so 8 altogether, and 13 from before. So
What's Bouncer's charisma?
3, but I have 4 subterfuge.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And at the moment, it's clear as Marion, engages this woman in conversation and tries to build up rapport and get her to trust her. It's clear that Bouncer is straining against her nature to back you up. Every time she backs you up or agrees with something you say or says that she's just a social worker, she says it through gritted teeth. A couple of times you see her fingers curl up into a fist as she tightly grips the upholstery. It's clear she's fighting an internal battle to not just destroy the whole facade and demands this woman tell her what she wants to know. And eventually Eileen Drummer seems to trust you, and she says, well, I need you to understand that Simon was a good kid. He really was. He was good at footy, and he got into uni, and the footy team was going to pay for his uni. He was studying physical education. He was going to be a teacher. He had a bright future ahead of him. But, look, you know how it is with boys, teenagers, and, he had a bit of an anger problem. Sometimes he'd fly off the handle, and, he was pressured. He felt pressured to live up to expectation, and, he admitted to me one time that he sometimes got a little rough with girls because that's what they like, and, that's what's demanded of him as a boy, right? I made him apologize to every one of his former girlfriends when I discovered this, but, Miranda wouldn't let it go. She kept saying he forced himself on her, and as she says this, Bouncer, go ahead and make me a resolve with your compulsion active. You're on edge. Go ahead and make me a resolve plus composure plus a third of your humanity,
this is going to have a very personal impact on Bouncer.
Yeah.
Because if there's one thing Bouncer cannot stand,
Oh, yeah.
it's men who fuck around.
That's all I could think of as she was talking. I was like, oh, he's a good kid. Think of his career. It's like, oh, yeah. But it's composure, resolve, the third of humanity.
She's just so woke, that Bouncer.
Yeah.
Social justice brewer.
Mm-hmm. Only reason you'd be uncomfortable with that.
Jesus Christ, my rolls tonight. Critical 8.
You look at her, grit your teeth, and you open your mouth about to shout something, and then you catch Marion's eye, and instead what comes out is just a... Hey. Well, sure, he was just boy being boys being boys, right? Nothing a little counselling wouldn't have fixed. Right, says his mother. He had some anger issues. But, well, we tried to settle out of court, but Miranda insisted on taking it further, and, well, Simon has a lot of friends, and his future was at stake, so, well, we pulled all the family money together, we got him a good lawyer, and, well, it was put to rest in the courtroom. He paid her what the judge said he should pay, and we thought that was the end of it, that it would be forgotten, but she said, she was making these posts on social media saying that she wouldn't rest until he paid for what he'd done to her, and I just know she was involved, and her mother, that bitch of a mother, wouldn't listen to anything, just judged us, judged me as a mother, judged our family, and things that happened in our family behind closed doors, and, well, his mother said to me on the day we settled it all in court, his mother said to me, she looked me straight in the eyes, and she said, I hope your son gets what's coming to him.
I see.
And so you believe she has something to do with it?
I can't think of anyone else who'd want to do such a horrific thing. Simon was, like I keep saying, Simon was a good kid. He was popular, had a lot of friends, and, well, Miranda and her mother, they were the only ones who had it out for him.
I'm sorry, what was the family name again?
Drummer.
Ms. Drummer, I understand your concern. We'll absolutely look into that, but I should say, generally these kinds of threats don't tend to amount to much. I would be surprised if that was the cause of your son's passing.
This is Gateway. This isn't Melbourne or bloody Sydney. There aren't just random killers targeting teenagers on the streets.
I understand. I'll take you. I believe you. But you can't think of anyone else that might have had anything out against him.
Thinks for a moment, tapping her chin with her finger.
As she thinks, Marion continues, I'm sorry to grill you like this, it's just that in the process of this is called profiling, we try to look at all the options available and see who might be the most likely match.
No, I understand, and I want whoever did this brought to justice, and, well, he told me that there was no trouble, that nothing would happen, that I was overreacting, but, well, last year, before he was going to start uni, and they let the lockdowns end for a month or two, he went partying with some friends. They went to the Geezer Lounge. You know it, right? Geezer, the Sphinx one?
I'm familiar.
And anyone who lives in G-Town would know the Geezer Lounge. Geezer as in the Sphinx of Geezer. It's a life-size scale replica of the Egyptian Sphinx. A very Egyptian-themed nightclub that has a reputation for being rather dangerous and gaudy, and also the place to go when you enjoy illicit substances. And, well, when he was there, he had a confrontation with someone his friends knew, this there was this guy selling drugs, right? And Simon was offered, and, well, Simon took the drugs and, well, I don't understand the specifics, but he ended up fighting someone at the club, and the dealer, the whoever gave him the drugs, they demanded that he pay reparations for putting a dampener on business that night. And, well, we said just forget about it, that if he causes trouble, we'll go to the police, and that was all a year ago. We didn't hear anything more after that. The dealer obviously realized that Simon was just a teenager and didn't have any money and forgot about him.
Okay, that's very helpful. Thank you.
That's pretty much all I know. I'm sorry I can't offer more to help, but I really don't know anything else. It was such a shock. He was getting ready to play in a big game next weekend, and then all of a sudden, the police are knocking on the door, and her voice falters as she trails off.
Does it seem like she's being genuine when she says she doesn't know anything else, or like?
Go ahead, make me a
she's
wits
holding
insight
Yeah,
check.
Marion would be running. We're doing the same thing.
Make wits insight checks.
Nice.
3.
3. And Bouncer.
Only 2.
2. 5 altogether. So you both get the impression that she's being genuine. Well, it's been hard for her. She's divulged deeply what she considers to be deeply shameful secrets, and she's told you what she knows because she genuinely hopes it'll help bring her son's killer to justice. It's clear that the conversation has reopened old wounds, and her eyes just sort of water as she contemplates the photos of her son taken too soon laid out on the table in front of her. I'm sorry, she says. Is there anything else?
Unless you're in the mood to fill out a survey, no, I think that should do it all.
She nods. Please, if anything comes up, if you find out anything, please let me know. Don't hesitate. If there's anything else I can help with, don't hesitate to
Of
ask.
course, actually, on that note, what would we have your current phone number? Can I just verify that?
She nods and she rattles off a phone number. You add it to your phone as she does so, and she says, I gave it to the police already, but your social workers, and I can tell there's not a lot of communication, but if you call me on
believe
that...
the system. It's a nightmare.
If you call me on that, I should answer. The only times I wouldn't is if I'm asleep or the phone is flat, and, well, you know, I don't think I'm going to be sleeping anytime soon.
I understand. Okay, thank you, ma'am. We'll be heading off then.
You rise, and she leads you back towards the front door, sees you out, and once again, her eyes misty, she thanks you for your time. Please, find who did this. Please, for the sake of my son. And then she pulls the door shut, retreats back into the house, and leaves you standing on the doorstep in the cold wind. And Bouncer, your compulsion subsides. The information was gathered in the end. Your beast grumbles, rattles the bars of its cage, and then finally settles Fine. Into the back of your mind. Tig, you're leaning against the door of your ute when suddenly you hear a meow, meow, and you look up to see a plump orange neighborhood cat with a blue flea collar and a little brass circular name tag dangling off it, prowling out of the shadows. It leaps up onto the waist-high brick fence of one of the houses and just sits there staring at you, its green eyes seeming to glow in the night.
That's been right helpful lately. Tig says, but I know the drill, you mercenary cunt. He pulls out a tin of cat food. The good stuff. Cracks it open. Why don't you start telling me about the lad used to live there and any weird stuff you've seen going on?
You place
Particularly at nights.
You place the can of sardines down on the concrete. The cat takes one look of it, and then it stands up, its tail unfurling in a question mark shape, and leaps off the table. It seems to land on the concrete with a loud floof, and you realise that this cat is unusually large as it sets about devouring the cat food. When it's done, it just licks its lips. Satisfied, looks up at you and lets out a meow as thanks. And then images begin to flash through your mind from the cat's point of view. The cat watching, curled up in the bushes, sleeping in the front garden of the neighbour's yard. Watching as a middle-aged looking woman in her mid to late 40s, early 50s, her wrinkled face flecked with silver hair, simply stands in front of the drummer's house, stands on the sidewalk and watches, staring, unmoving, uncannily, in the dead of night. And then, satisfied, apparently, with what she's seen, turns away, briefly catches the cat's eye line, flashes a smile that you instantly recognize as the monstrous relish of someone who's anticipating doing harm. And then she simply steps off the sidewalk and seems to fade into thin air.
Well, found us a culprit.
Says the cat as it walks towards you, rubbing against your leg, purring loudly, and another image flashes through your mind to follow up the first one. This time the cat's curled up on the boot of the red sedan in the drummer's driveway, lifting its head lazily as on apparently a different night, someone unseen prowls in the little alleyway leading towards the house's backyard, their boots crunching on the frost and the dead leaves. A gravelly voice whispering in the darkness, 4 for 4. And Tig, as you hear these words, 4 for 4, I'd like you to go ahead and make me an intelligence plus wits roll.
Not a great roll for Tig. I think I'm going to try boosting wits. Actually, let's go intelligence. Cool, that succeeded. Now I'll go for boosting wits.
Actually, you can do intelligence plus resolve. I just looked it up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I just got 2 successful boost checks, so I'll keep those and roll 9
Go ahead.
dice.
Hey, more successes means more information.
4 successes. And I'll spend a willpower since I committed this far. Makes it 5.
444. Something about those words lingers in your mind, and then you stare into the cat's eyes, it stares back at you, and suddenly, it's like someone runs up behind you and slams a sledgehammer into the back of your skull. Your entire brain ache seems to throb against the inside of your skull as a rush of memory floods through you. Fragments disconnected, voices indecipherable, figures with no discernible features, shadows, flashing lights, and then Valerie. Valerie's face frowning as she bites her bottom lip as she looks over at Samantha Stokes and says, 4 for 4. That sounds ominous enough, right? Samantha Stokes nods and says, good thinking. And then you're back in the present, your feet once again firmly planted on the concrete, your body seeming to shake, waver as you nearly topple forwards and have to exert conscious willpower to remain standing.
No, something loose in there. Something I wasn't supposed to remember. Valerie's... shit. Was that a woman's voice that said 4x4 in the alleyway?
It was. Not the same voice, not Val's voice, obviously, but the words are the same, and somehow, something deep inside tells you that they carry the same meaning, but you just can't seem to remember what that meaning is. That context slips through your fingers just as you reach out and try to snatch it back.
Need to run it by Bouncer. Yeah, Arian wasn't there.
This
Run it
point,
by Bouncer.
the cat looks up at you, gives one last meow, and then darts away into the shadows, sensing that its job is done. You hear footsteps behind you and whirl around to see Marion and Bouncer approaching the ute.
Find anything?
A couple leads, yes. What about you?
We should... Scrap went for a molehill, found a fucking mountain. Maybe. We need to go somewhere and talk.
Yeah, tell me in the
I
car.
know. Alright. Tig piles in. Actually,
Bouncer snatches Tig's phone and dials Marion's, pressing the button to put the phone on speaker before handing it back to Tig so you could actually communicate.
alright. And I
And
guess
then-
this is the point where we go to break as Tig tells them everything.
Yeah, the engines roar to life as the two cars speed down the street and into the night. The Mercedes-Benz, far more wealth than anyone here will ever see. And the ute seems like it came out of a Mad Max movie. The ute and the Mercedes-Benz make their way through the suburbs, onwards towards Kevin Thrush's family home. But as you drive, your smartphones sit on the dashboards, on speaker, as Tig explains what he saw, what the cat saw, and how those words, 4 for 4, lingered in his mind. And as he says the words, as they seem to hang in the air, as they seem to crowd the tiny cabin of the ute, Bouncer, I'd like you to go ahead and make me an intelligence plus resolve check.
Yeah, let's willpower. Ooh, it becomes critical 5.
Critical 5. At first, you think it's finally happened. After months and months of riding in Tig's ute and feeling like it's about to fall apart at any moment, you think finally it's happened. A rusty bolt has slipped out of where it should be, and the chassis of the car has snapped, and the whole cabin is being flung into the stratosphere. But it's not. The street lights and the suburban houses continue to stream by as your entire head wells up in pain. You clutch your hands to your foreheads as figures, lights, flashes, voices, words overwhelm you like a torrent of water, like a tidal wave. And you see Sam Stokes' face, smiling, nodding in approval. Might have to pad the numbers a bit. Only got 3 after all, and gonna need 4, but yeah, I think we could make it work. She winks, and as she winks, you feel your body lurch forwards as if you've physically been dropped out of the sky and landed once more on the rough leather upholstery of Tig's passenger seat, feeling your stomach twist and churn.
Yeah.
Well, that was horrible.
For what? For bodies? And that woman I described, she any kind of familiar to you?
She's not familiar to you, Bouncer. Not
Nah.
part of those fragments of memory, but you realise as you tell Tig and Marion over the phone what you just saw, what you just remembered, that there is something uncomfortably familiar about this whole thing. Something you can't quite put your finger on. Something that you know you should understand. Something obvious that just for some reason slips through the tips of your fingers each time you reach out to grab it and pull it out of the darkness. And so, before long, you arrive at the Thrush family residence. Down the end of McAllister Street. And it's immediately obvious that there's something interesting about the second victim, Kevin Thrush, who was found bloodless in a city park 2 nights ago. Most of the houses in McAllister Street are the same red brick, 3-bedroom suburban dwellings that seem to be repeated infinitely around this part of town. But the Thrush household, right at the end of the street, it's a veritable McMansion. Easily twice the size of the neighbouring houses. Double story, a big, grand front yard with topiary hedges and a perfectly maintained garden. Water features on the front lawn.
Are there
Even
non-load-bearing columns?
non-load-bearing columns along
There we
the
go.
front of the building facade. A water feature of various kinds of birds, water streaming from the ends of their beaks, seeming to sparkle in the moonlight, glimmer like liquid light itself. According to the information provided by Senior Constable Webber, Kevin Thrush was unemployed and lives with his parents. And yet, He's clearly living a life of luxury, or he was, until he met his end. You've arrived late enough that there aren't any lights on in the house. By this point, it's past 11 p.m. The only sign that anyone's home at all is a single silver station wagon at the end of the driveway, and attached to the back of it is a skip. For the Americans in the audience, a skip is like a trailer, like a dumpster that you attach to the back of your car. It's common practice in Australia to hire a tip, hire a skip, pile all your rubbish into it, take it to the tip, and dump it, and never have to worry about it ever again. And I'll put a picture of a skip in Discord so you can actually see what you're looking at. This skip is bright red, and the faded lettering on the side simply reads Brown Sanitation, and there's a phone number. Someone's chained the lid of the skip shut and secured it with a very thick, sturdy-looking iron padlock.
Anyone got any bolt cutters?
I think this is my first time to. On the other hand, Bouncer is bolt cutters. Probably could do it more quiet. I got some in the ute if you want to do that, but
Let's go with the bolt cutters.
alright, I go fetch the bolt cutters.
At least this
Recommend
way we-
using them on the chain, not the padlock.
Yeah.
Psh, not my
Apparently, a
first time.
skip is a very Australian thing.
So,
It's a good
same
idea.
deal. You guys go up to the house and start asking questions, or do we want to crack this before we go up to the house?
Intel fast.
Bearing in mind that
Alright.
that no lights are on in the house, you know someone's home, but it doesn't look like they're up at this time of night.
Alright.
Hmm.
I will try to cut the bolt as precisely and quietly as I can.
Alright? Meanwhile, Marion and
Unless
Bouncer,
somebody else wants to.
you step up to the doorstep.
No,
Standing in-
I was saying let's look at the skip first,
Nah, let's
so we know what we're dealing with.
Yeah.
So, Bouncer, do you want Tig to use the bolt cutters as he fishes them from the back of his ute?
I mean, if we're using bolt cutters, I don't see why not.
Yeah, alright.
Bolt cutters do most of the work.
So Tig, step up to the chain and as carefully and precisely as you can, snip the bolt cutters through the metal, cutting through a chain link, and the whole thing falls apart. The chain slides through a loop and lands at your feet, uncoiled like a metal snake. The padlock drops off the front of the skip and snaps open.
Alright. Quietly open it.
So if you're going to quietly open it, I will ask you to go ahead and make me a strength athletics check. Because you're going to need to put force into it, but you're going to need to do it in such a way that you don't just wrench it open.
That'll be 2 successes. Should
Two
be enough.
successes. Bouncer, do you want to try to assist?
Please do.
I suppose in this year.
Marion stands back and inspects for nails.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
not Marion's gate.
She has
Bag
one
at all.
strength.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Bouncer, go ahead, make a strength athletics of your own.
Oh lord. Now, we were trying to open this, so that means we succeed, but there's a side effect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
that's
is
a
that
messy
enough,
five.
Messy? Messy 5? You don't want to re-roll it?
You can't, they're both on
again,
hunger.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hunger.
again, both
Yeah.
criticals are on the hunger die.
So, as Marion just purses her lip, folds her arms, and watches, Tig places his hands on the lid and he goes to lift. Now, Tig has two modes. Either he's going full strength and just poof, pops it open, or he's trying to restrain himself, just unhook it, slide it slowly open. And it looks like he's having trouble finding the middle ground, struggling to even get it open in the first place. So Bouncer sighs, rolls her eyes, steps forwards, places her hands on the lid, and then crash! As she lifts the lid up with such force, it snaps off the back of the skip and loudly clatters onto the driveway. Immediately a light switches on the second floor. Marion, do you have words of disapproval or disapproval?
She just visibly rubs her temples, just groans.
So you only have a second to peer inside now that you've made a noise. So I'll ask Tig and Bouncer and Marion, does anyone have any dots in streetwise?
I don't know. I'm a country boy.
Nope.
I have two.
So Marion and Tig, as you peer into the skip, you see what looks to be a pile of packages, most of them wrapped in plastic bags and white paper. A couple of the packages are half torn open, and inside you can see little baggies of a clear glass-like substance, like powdered glass. There's a computer hard drive shoved off into one corner, a monitor with a big crack through it, and a stack of old 20-cent exercise books. Bouncer, you instantly recognize those packages as drugs, methamphetamine, ice. There's at least $20,000-$30,000 worth of it piled here in this skip. And your suspicions that it's made here are confirmed when you peer beyond the bags themselves, shove a couple out of the way, and find a high school chemistry set laying discarded at the very bottom of the skip. As you hear the sound of a latch being drawn on the other side of the front door, you realise you have only seconds to grab something if you're going to.
Hard drive? I mean, all the rest is just drugs.
Yeah. Oh, I must have missed that one or something. Yeah, grab that.
Bouncer reaches in, grabs the computer tower, hoists it out, and Marion, is there anything you'd like to take? Or are you going to cast your attention to the front door that's about to be flung open?
She would be definitely doing that.
You turn, face the front door as Tig helps Bouncer lift the computer tower out of the skip and carry it down the driveway towards the ute. Sure enough, the metal screen door flings open, and on the other side stands a short, rotund man whose belly is so large that it looks like his G-Town Cat's pajama shirt only covers the top half of his torso. He brandishes a cricket bat in both hands, and as he peers out over the patio, he shouts, "Oi! The fuck you lot doing out here?"
God.
He lays his eyes on Marion, and seeing her standing there, it seems for a moment that he's not quite aware that the skip's been broken open yet.
Close it now.
Oh, yeah. Tig kind of gives eyes Bouncer and closes it and waves her back toward the ute.
You're gonna have to do more than that. The lid's lying on the floor. It needs to be reattached.
Oh God, right. Okay, that's.
Oh yeah.
Okay,
Okay, in that
Marion
case-
moves to intercept.
Moves to
In that
intercept.
case, Tig will just put himself between the guy and the lid so he doesn't see it. It's dark. What the hell?
Sorry, remind me who this person was?
So this is presumably a family member of the second victim. He was in bed until the cacophony of the skip being broken open summoned him. He's brandishing the cricket bat, and as he shakes it, he calls, "You stay away from that skip! That's me son Kevin's stuff!"
I'm very sorry, sir, for the disturbance. Look, we actually we work for the police.
Police.
We're
Marion,
not
go,
police, but we work for them.
go ahead, make me a manipulation plus subterfuge check, Marion.
She's working on a very quick thinking here, and it's not a great cover.
Behind you, what are Tig and Bouncer doing? One of you's got to get the computer tower back to the ute. Are you going to just cut your losses, get it back to the ute, and hope Marion diffuses him quickly enough that you can get out of here before he notices it's been busted open? Or is one of you going to stay behind and try to reaffix the lid while Marion distracts him?
Tig will try to reaffix the lid while he's distracted.
You give a look to Bouncer, nodding towards the ute, and she shuffles away, carrying the computer tower.
Yeah.
Computer tower, looking over her shoulder when she reaches the end of the driveway to watch as Tig lifts the lid off the ground. And Tig, go ahead, make me a dexterity athletics check. You may add an extra dice because your strength is quite high.
While he's rolling, Marion got a 2, and she's not going to burn any willpower on that because she knows it's a very bad cover.
Yeah, 2. So she's wearing her business casual, and she could pass.
Shoot. Sorry, I forgot.
She could pass as a detective in a pinch, but as the man raises an eyebrow and snorts, "Coppers, huh?" and then peers over her shoulder and rolls. Just one success.
2 successes here.
Tig's already slid the lid back over the skip itself and slams his hands down on it to fix it into place. Mr. Thrush sees that the skip is still ostensibly closed, and he visibly relaxes a moment. He lowers the baseball bat, and then he glares at Marion and he says, "Ain't got nothing to say to coppers! Nothing
I'm
at all!"
sorry, let's forget about all this animosity, shall we?
His eyes glaze over, he shakes his head, and
Let's try that again.
then, realizing that he's standing barefoot on the doorstep of his house with Marion and Tig standing in front of him, he shakes his head and he says, "Oh, I'm sorry, can I help you? Forgot, I know you introduced yourself, but it must have slipped me mind. He thrusts out his left hand. I'm Edward Thrush. I assume you hear about Kevin."
We are. She extends her hand. Maria. Yes, we're looking into his circumstances.
"Coppers, huh?" he says.
Oh God, no. We just we're officially hired by them, but between you and me, we try to make things not involve them as much as possible.
"You ain't coppers yourself, though. I guess so." He glances over at Tig. He says, "He don't look like one, so..."
He certainly is not.
It's more of a private investigation kind of thing.
Private eyes, right. Because, see, the coppers ain't really interested in finding who did my son in, is the thing. So, you best tell me what you want to know before I tell you to get the fuck off my property.
Very fair point. Look, like you say, the police don't tend to care about solving these kinds of issues, and luckily for us, and hopefully for you, look, there's a new state mandate at the moment, putting private contractors like us on jobs like these because the police do have these internal issues. So we'd love to get as much information as possible to help figure out what happened to your son.
Ed Marion, make me another manipulation subterfuge.
I was rolling it as you spoke. That's a 3.
Right, says Edward. He seems to realise that he's still clutching the baseball bat in his hand, and suddenly he shrugs apologetically and he says, for the life of me, I can't bloody remember opening it. You must have woken me up or something, but look, if I came on too strong, brandishing this, I apologise.
Don't stress with everything that's going on. It'd be odd if you were calm.
Been a lot going on, what happened to Kev, and there's been, nosy neighbours nosing around, asking questions, and just coppers ain't been interested in sending anyone a talk until now, and...
Yeah, we want to get this all sorted out for you so that you can go back to your life and go back to grieving.
Well, I'll give you one for free then, he says. You're probably gonna ask me whether Kev's got any enemies, and I'll say... was one of those blokes on the computer, wasn't it?
Computer?
Well, look, me and his ma, we never seen any of these people who wished him ill, but, Kev ran a business, right? He paid for room and board here at our place, but he ran this business. He is selling stuff over the internet on an online business. And he said someone had been stalking him AFK, whatever that meant.
Okay. What kind of things was he selling? Obviously, she knows.
He nervously sort of peers over your shoulder towards the skip with Tig standing in front of it, leaning against it, folding his arms. Witchy stuff, right? Like incense and powders and things like that. Them Wicca girls are all over that stuff like that.
And that got him in trouble.
Well, yeah, way he explained it is he had a falling out with a business partner or something. You do anything on the internet, you're going to attract people that don't like you, right?
Oh, yeah, a lot of weirdos on the internet, I understand.
So he ran into some sort of weirdo or something. Someone was stalking him. He was getting paranoid, and, well, then, he winds up done in the local park. It don't take a detective to put 2 and 2 together, right?
Mm-hmm. I understand.
It had something to do with his business, because he instructed us. He sat us down and he said, Mum, Dad, anything happens to me, take all the stuff out of me room and get rid of it. We were meant to burn it all, but we ain't got around to it. He shuffles in the spot.
I'm sure all of that stuff would have made one hell of a smell.
All sorts of weird smells, chemistry, equipment, and... Look, his mum said maybe it was drugs, right? But I assured her, I said, no, Kev's a good boy, he wouldn't get involved in drugs, it's just... He sighs. Go ahead, Tig.
Right. We ain't police.
Yeah, we really
And
don't
besides,
care,
it would be a horrible idea to dump a whole bunch of drugs in the trash. Garbage men would flag that and notify the police immediately. Your son wouldn't want you to get in that kind of trouble.
He sort of... He shuffles on the spot, scratching the back of his neck. Well,
He probably would have told you to dump it in the ocean, quite like. But since he didn't, it was definitely crystals and things.
Yeah, like I said, crystals and powders and incense, witchy stuff, dream catchers and whatever, yeah. And then he frowns. Hang on, you haven't looked in...
No, we wouldn't do that. We don't have a warrant for one. We're not cops.
Right. Well, look, I don't imagine there'd be anything in it that would have any clues, but... Stops for a moment, clearly waging a war in his head, trying to decide whether he trusts you enough to give you something that might genuinely help you catch his son's killer.
I'm gonna roll insight to see if it'd be worth probing that.
Go ahead. Wits plus insight.
That's 2.
2. It's obvious to him that whatever he's holding back seems like important information, but based on what you've already seen in the skip, obvious to you what Kevin was mixed up in, and it could just be his father's deciding whether he wants to just come straight out and tell you that his son was involved in drugs, and that's probably the trouble he got into.
Well, anything at all that could help find who did this to him would be very helpful.
You find him, what are you going to do to him?
Well, he'll be referred on to the police for one, and while they don't tend to care about helping people, they love locking people up.
True that, and I suppose Kev's gone, so we don't need to worry about being locked up, but he lived with us, and he was running the business from our house, and, well, the coppers won't try to start shit with us, will they?
Look, I've seen a fair few court cases in my time, and I'm yet to see a judge or the police move on a bereaved family in any kind of major way.
Go ahead, make me a charisma subterfuge check.
4.
4. He lets out a sigh. All right, but look, he motions for you to come close to him, and as you step closer, he leans in, lowers his voice. Keep your voice down, because I don't want Barbara, his mum, hearing, right? We've tried to keep her out of it, break her heart to know this is what Kev was mixed up in, but it was ice, right? Selling ice. So, he was a drug dealer, right? And he did it over the net. And when you're in that line of work, you got lots of enemies, don't you?
I understand. I do.
But I think, because he was paranoid, he said he'd had a fallout with his business partner. They were stalking him AFK. I think there's only one person that can refer to. He looks around as if the paranoia suddenly infects him and he's trying to make sure no one's listening in. And then he says, You know about the Geezer Lounge, don't you?
Interesting that you mentioned that. It may have come up before.
Really? He raises an eyebrow. I suppose the police did mention there was another incident that they'd linked Kev's to. You mean to say the Geezer Lounge showed up in that incident too?
It did.
Well,
it looked a bit like a cold lead, but if you know anything...
At this, the grieving father smiles. He's suddenly filled with resolve and he says, well, that tells me I'm on the right bloody track. See, Kev didn't tell me much about his business, safety reasons. If the coppers show up, me and his ma don't know much. Can't get in trouble for what we don't know. But he did say that he had a big business partner. He's got some guy. See, he called it a downline, right? See, Kev wasn't out selling the stuff on the street. He had a guy did it for him, and they was doing it through the Geezer Lounge. Now, Kev said he was going to meet his business partner this week, try to hash things out, see if they could smooth it over, get back to business. Was going to meet him tomorrow night. Told me, he said, Dad, I wouldn't tell you about my business, but I'm worried. Tomorrow night, at 8:30 p.m, I'm going into the Geezer Lounge, and I've got to meet my partner in the Pharaoh suite. Okay?
Okay.
He shrugs. He says, I tell you the truth, if you lot hadn't turned up, I was going to rock up there myself tomorrow night. I was going to tell them who I was, say, right, I'm Kev's dad, and I demand answers. Demand they let me into this bloody Pharaoh suite and find out what's been done to my bloody son.
Strikes me as a fairly bad idea. But we might be able to get some answers out of him. Dick cracks his knuckles.
You look more capable of walking out there without getting hurt than me, I'll give you that. Once again, none of this gets back to the coppers, yeah? I mean, you'll find the guy who did Kevin, hand him over, and there don't need to be no grief for me or Barbara, right?
Of course not.
None. And mate, if that is full of ice, serious, plastic bag it and throw it in the sea.
In the sea? Kev said to burn it, but I suppose if it is drugs...
Burn it and you kill yourself or the neighborhood. Cause I tell you, the trash men, they sometimes search as what goes through. There's no way I wouldn't notice this.
Alright. Take it and dump it in the sea. His computer's in there. I don't know exactly if there'd be anything on it that'd help you, but look. Fumbles around in the pocket of his dressing gown and fishes out a little brass key, and he says, feel free to take the computer, maybe have a look on it, maybe you'll find something.
Yep. Tig takes it. Thanks. You go and have a lie down now. We'll take it from here.
Oh, anything else I can help you with? I mean, look, I know me and coppers ain't exactly a good mix, but that was me son, that was me boy, and, well, if I can help you in any way.
There anything you remember from that night?
That night, 2 nights ago. Yeah, he says. Yeah. I thought it was weird, because it was bloody weird. Now, you know, the line of work Kev's in, and you know, the type of company he keeps, you'd say if Kev suddenly developed an interest in the art, that'd be a bit strange, yeah? See, he'd go to concerts and nightclubs, and he'd ply his trade there, but he said someone had given him a ticket for some special exhibit down the art gallery, and I laughed and I slapped him on the back and I said, alright son, we'll give it to your mother, maybe she can have a night out with Nan or something. But would you believe it, he said it was important for business that he went.
Interesting.
So we sent him off on his way, helped him pick a suit and everything so he wouldn't look out of place at a bloody art gallery, and then Well, you know what happened. He hangs his head.
Alright. Thanks, mate. We'll take it from here. You go have a lie down.
Best of luck, and look, from a father who's genuinely fucking devastated, you catch that guy, you make sure he pays. Make sure he gets what he deserves.
We will.
He nods, and then he begins to make his way back up towards the doorstep, and as he shuffles through the yard, you realise it is nothing more than a pathetic, sad old man. He gives you one last wistful look in the doorway and then pulls the door shut. A few minutes later, as you make your way back towards the vehicles, the light on the second floor dies, and the street, the house are silent once more. It's as you reach the ute, where Bouncer's already slid the computer tower behind the passenger seat, that the three of you feel your phones vibrate, and on the other side of town, as Wolf's car pulls out of the parking lot at the junkyard, 3 bodies recently consigned to the incinerator, his and Kat's phones come to life as well, filling the BMW with their ringtones. There's a message on your phones waiting for all of you from the same number that you were contacted earlier tonight, from who you now understand to be Senior Constable Mark Webber. It reads, "Third victim just found. You can be the first on the scene." And then an address. Somewhere in the industrial north. Somewhere near Marsupial. And I'll ask a question. Do you take the hook?
What's the call then?
It's a very good question.
We've got 2 leads that point to this nightclub. But first on the scene. Fuck, no, that's too good. We need the hook, don't we?
I truly do not trust Samantha, sir.
Yeah, as much as I want to, this is feeling a little too good.
It would be a wonderful way to frame us for something.
Politics.
Wolf, a message shoots through on your phone from Bouncer. It reads, "Thinking of going for it. What do you think?"
I feel like at this point Wolf would probably follow the others.
And Kat?
She doesn't really have anything to add. She's just gonna
So-
mostly just follow Wolf.
Alright. Enoch style. My votes go check it out. You 2 are voting for Giza, yeah? He looks like... He says to Marion and Bouncer.
Definitely.
Would follow the others, as would Kat. So Tig, you're downvoted.
Alright,
Wolf gets
Giza
shot.
it is.
Wolf gets shot a message back on his phone. Nah, leave it. Meet at the Giza. And you head out. So you've chosen not to go to the 3rd crime scene. It is a tempting offer, but also, at the same time, very, very suspicious.
Yep.
As you make your way out to the Geezer Lounge, your cars scream down the highway, carried out of G-Town proper, out onto the highway that runs along the shore of Cowie's Bay, towards the little part of town just beyond the city limits where the casinos and the dodgy resorts and the seedier nightclubs are situated. Eventually, the Mercedes-Benz and the Ute are joined by Wolf's BMW, and the three cars travel side by side as the coterie move with purpose to their next destination, to the Geezer Lounge. And as you scream into the beacon of brightly coloured neon lights that sits there on the edge of Cowie's Bay, where you could see the shape of the huge sandstone sphinx, the lion presiding over its kingdom. You scream past a billboard on the side of the road. A very old billboard. A billboard from which the face of a young man with long, flowing, shoulder-length brown hair peers down at you and smiles. Big red letters gleaming, missing. Have you seen Jonathan? The colours of the billboard faded over years of disuse. But someone out there still so desperate to find their missing loved one that they've paid the fee every month all these years to keep the billboard up, to keep it here on the side of the road that leads to G-Town's more illicit entertainment district, where thousands of eyes would pass it by every day. And as you do, I would like Wolf, Tig, and Bouncer to make me intelligence plus resolve checks.
Alright.
That's a 2 from Wolf.
2 from Wolf.
That's a messy critical 5 from Tig.
I won't apply the messy until next session, but assuming you don't want to re-roll that.
You know what? I do.
At least you can.
And that changes it to only 2 successes.
2 successes, and Bouncer?
Regular critical 5.
Ah, well, I was asking for at least 6 between you, so between Wolf, Bouncer, whose memory has most certainly been primed, and Tig, you get it. The face from the billboard smiles down at you, and suddenly, whoosh! Wolf, Bouncer, Tig, you're whisked away. You're no longer sitting at the steering wheel, driving towards the great glowing neon sphinx on the edge of the bay. You're somewhere else, somewhen else. Your minds hurtle through the mists of time. Back to 22 years ago, 1999. You're standing in the living area of what looks like a hotel suite. If Marion were here, if Marion were witnessing the vision herself, she'd tell you that it's one of the penthouse suites of the Colonial Hotel. A window looks down upon the city below, and the voice of a bored-sounding newsreader echoes from the TV. You can do your banking, pay your bills, and order groceries, all from the comfort of your own home. Sounds like something straight out of Back to the Future, but it's here today, as the ABS predicts as many as 50% of all homes in Australia will have access to the information superhighway by the new millennium, Tegan Rose reports. And then you peer down at your feet. The polished white tiles of the hotel suite are stained with blood. Reams of blood, pools of it, blood and viscera, and the face of a dead man. His body broken, his vessels drained of every last drop, stares up at you, the same face from the billboard. And you realise you've just killed this man. His blood is still fresh, damp on your skin, damp on your clothes. You could still taste the aftertaste in the backs of your throats, your beast in the back of your mind, purring in contentment. In the room, a bouncer, Tig, Wolf, Valerie, and Mitchell. And in unison, your faces turn pale, your eyes widen in shock, your mouths drop open with the realization that you killed this man. Your very first kill. What do you do?
Shit, it wasn't supposed to be this way.
That didn't actually just happen. That didn't happen, did it?
Says Mitch. Takes another look at the body and sees the eyes staring up unknowing into his. Sees the blood gleam in the light of the moon outside and in the glow of the TV. Touches the blood on the sleeve of his jacket and realizes it is wet. It is indeed real. Val steps back, raising her hands, her bottom lip stammering in shock, and how? He wasn't supposed to be here. He wasn't. What do we do? What do we do?
Elaine's gonna go mad. Elaine's gonna. We have to. Elaine's gonna. No, I made a promise.
We can't just leave him here, says Val. We did this. The masquerade. We have to get rid of him. We have to
clean this up.
There couldn't have been a way to avoid this. This must.
He came into. He wasn't meant to be here. How could we could have avoided this? Of course we could have avoided this. What's Wolf doing?
It's done. It's done. We have to deal with it.
All right, so
Bouncer, go ahead.
how do we get rid of it all? Oh God.
You look over at Wolf, the only one who hasn't spoken. He's just peering down at the body, frowning, silently contemplating. And then, before he has the chance to say anything, behind you, the door to the hotel suite is flung open. A buff man in a black tank top and cargo pants steps through. He holds up a baggie of white powder and shouts, "Come deliver it!" His mouth drops open as he sees the scene before him, sees the blood, sees the corpse lying at your feet, sees these hungry monsters gathered around. And then, with the door still open, he looks over his shoulder, tenses his legs, and prepares to run screaming. Stop him! Calls Val. Don't let him get away!
Yeah, Tig's gonna try and tackle.
Tig rushes forwards, grabs the man, and as he screams and struggles, pulls him back into the room. Val rushes forwards and pushes the suite door shut, blocking out his screams, making sure nobody on the other side can hear them, and then Tig drags him, kicking and screaming, into the lounge room, throws him down on the floor next to the drained, broken body of the man you've killed. And then what?
Yeah, Wolf will be in there quiet, quick, and humanely, with a knife through his gullet.
As everyone watches, Wolf steps forwards and silently...
Wolf, what are you...
This is how this goes. This might not be your normal world, but this is my normal world.
No. No, you can't do that.
I didn't know there's two.
This is getting worse. We need to shut this down.
The
Oh,
knife...
God.
The knife cuts through the man's skin. He lets out one last splutter and takes his final breath. Val leaning against the wall. He's looking left and right. Now there's two! And she peers over at Mitch and she says, it wasn't meant to happen! It wasn't meant to happen like this! We were told everything would be safe. We were told to stay away from people. We were told. But she peers over at Wolf and she nods. It had to be done. 1 for 1, 2 for 2.
Wolf steps away to go lock the door and makes a call to an associate.
And as Wolf steps out of the room, raises his phone and begins to make a call as Val mutters under her breath, 1 for 1, 2 for 2? How many? Oh my god, how could we? What have we done? As
his eyes glazed over, Mitch just repeats, we couldn't have done anything to avoid this.
This is what was meant to happen. It was preordained. How fate works. You're merely along for the ride. Your heart sinks. You hear the boop, beep, boop of Wolf's phone as he steps out into the hallway, begins to dial a number, and then the last thing you wanted to hear. An adjoining bedroom. The door slowly creaking open as a woman in underwear and a nightgown stands in the doorway, her silhouette framed in the dim glow of the television, her skin pale, her mouth dropping open with shock as she reaches for the landline receiver on the wall in front of her, ready to dial 000.
Remind me, what is, hang on. We are vampires at this point, yes?
You are, yes.
Yes. What Mitch has some dominate, doesn't he?
He sure does. The first dot of it, at least.
I think he would instinctively just reach out and say, please don't.
The woman stops, her hands freezing, the fingertips on the back of the receiver. She looks over at Mitchell, and then she nods. And then, from behind her, the darkness of the adjoining bedroom seems to reach out. Tendrils of shadow snake across the floor, creeping up the front of her body, wrapping around her neck. And as she looks back at Mitchell and opens her mouth to scream, her neck is twisted. She drops to the ground, dead. And Samantha Stokes steps out of the shadows behind her, a broad smile on her face. In the background, Val mutters, 1 for 1, 2 for 2, oh my god, oh my god! And Sam smiles in her direction. 3 for 3. Oh, you've all made a terrible, terrible mess, haven't you?
You set this up. You set this up somehow, didn't you? You set this up.
And now you'll need someone who can cover it all up, someone who can make it clean, someone who will make sure that none of this ever bothers you again. And we'll leave it there, letting the implications of the flashback settle in, letting these memories flood back into your consciousness. As Sam Stokes's domination, as Sam Stokes's forgetful mind in place for 21 years snaps. And the truth is at last revealed.